Welcome to Educating Geeks, the podcast where geeks help geeks discover new passions. I'm geek host Sarah, and today we have
Alice,
Megan,
and Bree.
And we are educating Bree on the 1982 film Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
I love Blade Runner.
I don't think we all watched the 1982 version.
I actually watched two different versions because while I was prepping for today, I was like, well, it's 6 a.m. I have time to watch another movie before noon. So
I would be like, it's 6 a.m. I should not be awake for 4 more hours.
I'd already been awake for like 2 at that point.
Oh my gosh.
I say 6 a.m. and Sarah's eyes go, wow! She's our noon riser. I'm jealous of that. I really am. If I'm not up by 4:30, dogs are like, hey, we need to go to the park. Can we go to the park? Can we go to the park?
That's why I don't have dogs or kids.
Okay, so let's talk about Blade Runner. Bree hasn't seen Blade Runner, so the movie, just to give everyone a little bit of context, is directed by Ridley Scott. He directed Alien, Prometheus, Black Hawk Down, Gladiator, Hannibal, The Robin Hood with Russell Crowe. He likes Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe!
I love Russell
How
Crowe.
much caffeine did you have?
Especially when Russell Crowe is sweaty and in chains. That's how I prefer him.
I don't like Russell Crowe.
I like Russell Crowe.
He's alright. He is pretty. And Blade Runner stars Harrison Ford. Second time we talked about Harrison Ford movie on the podcast.
Oh, I have a whole list of seconds from this book, or from this movie.
I have a short one. We'll see what yours includes. It also stars Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, and then the supporting cast, Edward James Olmos, the Commander, another second appearance person, Daryl Hannah and William Sanderson, and it's loosely based on the Philip K. Dick book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Has anyone read it?
No.
I tried.
It's hard to read. It's a hard read.
Loosely would be the operative word. So we're educating Bree. So Bree, will you give us your log line or your brief synopsis of what you feel the
What's
point
the
of
story?
the story, or what the basic outline of the story is?
Sure. I watched the director's cut. There's a lot of debate on Facebook when I asked my friends which version I should watch.
There's a lot of debate,
There's
yeah.
7 versions, I believe.
So wait, did you watch the director's cut or did you watch the final cut?
I watched the director's cut.
Okay, because I got confused between those two versions.
Yeah, I did too.
I'm pretty sure I watched the director's cut. Somebody said like, "Oh, the director's cut doesn't have the voiceover," and I said,
It does not
no.
have the voiceover.
Yeah,
What?
but there's more than
No,
one.
it does.
It does?
I must have watched one of the versions of the director's cut with
the voiceover.
Yeah,
Okay, well, we can go
director's cut
into-
does not have the voiceover. But
What
so
did I
before
watch
we
The theatrical, probably.
before we so synopsis of the film.
Synopsis of the film. Basically, there's a retired Blade Runner who is a person who kills androids who are illegally on Earth. And he's asked to do one more job, take down a group of androids who have come down and are wreaking havoc and doing what they will. And he just spends the whole film hunting them down. It's like a future noir film. He falls in love with one of the androids, of course, obviously, because you have to.
Well, it's Sean Young, so she's looking very hot in this film.
Oh, yeah. You
Very
weren't into
noir.
it?
Mm-mm.
No?
Are you kidding me? I loved her, like, power shoulder.
Oh, I'm not going to say I wasn't into her look. I just wasn't into her.
I'll give you that. Her look is very nice. Her acting,
Yeah, and
which there's some reasoning. There's some reason behind that. Well, I've got notes on it.
and what happens is one by one he hunts them down. He kills them. I actually wasn't very clear on the android's motivation to be there. I guess it was basically a question of like, why are we here? Can we live? Like, why do we only have 4 years? Can we live longer? Like,
That's exactly
That's
why
exactly
they were there. Because
Yeah.
they were. And so the replicants is what they're called. The replicants have been outlawed on Earth, and they've come to Earth because they're trying to find their creator, the guy who's in charge of the Tyrell Corporation. Not the Westeros Tyrells,
And this is like the future 6 years from now.
6 years from now.
And
Yes.
it's very interesting. I have a lot of notes on how they thought the future would be working so soon in the future.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically he kills all the replicants he was supposed to kill, except
He doesn't
for,
kill them. He retires them.
He retires all the
Yeah.
replicants he was supposed to retire, except
Although-
for the one who he falls in love with, and they
Well,
escape
but she's
together.
the one who kills. What's his name?
Yeah, she kills the
Leon?
Leon.
Yeah.
She kills Leon. He doesn't really.
Yeah,
and
so
he doesn't kill.
Goddamn one-man slaughterhouse. That's what
Yeah,
he is.
that
So
one.
they escape together, and a terrible voiceover tells us that they probably have a pretty good life together. And I know not everybody agrees with my my feelings on that voiceover, but
It's funny because when I was doing research, the voiceover is very divisive. Very divisive.
Well, and I would, for some, it may, for me, that again, saw it in the movie theater. So for me, it's very much, part of me growing up in geekdom was that voiceover. And so I have emotional attachment to that voiceover versus good filmmaking attachment to that voiceover, if you know what I mean.
Well, and my
Yeah.
dad was the one that showed me Blade Runner for the first time when I was probably definitely way too young because that's how we rolled in my dad's house. But I remember when he showed it to me, he introduced it to me as, we're going to watch this awesome movie that has Han Solo in it, and there's a really terrible voiceover that the director didn't want in it, and it shouldn't be in it, but we're going to watch it with the voiceover. That was how the film was introduced to me. It was like, there's this voiceover that is terrible, and you should ignore it and pretend it's not there.
like immediately he's talking about like sushi. That's what my
Ex-wife
calls me. Cold fish. I'm like, you sound like a cold fish. You do.
Well, and since we're on the voiceover topic, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with George Lucas in the Star Wars episode, how he's now gone back and made a lot of changes to his product, and so has Ridley Scott. That voiceover was put in because the producers said you have to put in this voiceover. It wasn't in the script from what I understand. It wasn't like a part of the film. And Ridley Scott didn't want it, Harrison Ford didn't want it, and so there are quotes all over the place about how he went in kicking and screaming, did not want to do the voiceover. And he said that, he gave it his all when he was in the recording booth, but it just sounds like he doesn't want to be doing
Sounds
it.
hungover the whole time.
Well, it's interesting because, again, I have a totally different perspective. That was the way that I watched the film for most of my
Yeah.
life.
Well, and I think
Having grown up with it. And for me, so having it be so ingrained in my experience of that film, it sounds very noir to me. That whole sort of, not so happy about it sort of lends to the whole character that he's in, is this sort of curmudgeon-y ex-Blade Runner who's having to do the one last job and so for me it all lends to that because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah. Well, and I do totally agree with you because it does bring it more into the straight quote-unquote noir realm with the voiceover. But I don't know. I know a lot of people feel the same way that you do, that they love the movie with it, and some of them say
So
they don't understand it without it.
Yeah, well, so
Yeah.
so that's the other thing. So for me, listening to the voiceover, there are parts of it that are over-explaining,
Yeah.
right? That I don't appreciate because I'm definitely one of those people who I don't particularly appreciate when a filmmaker feels like they have to hit me over the head with the point. Just in case you didn't get it, here I'm
Yeah.
gonna give it to you again. So that part of it, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I'm not vehemently against the voiceover as this horrible thing.
I might be the only one here who hasn't consumed it with the voiceover. I saw it when it was re-released in theaters in 2007. I saw it at the Valley Art Theater, and then again I saw it last night. Obviously, both of those were the final cut without the voiceover. And one of the issues that I had watching it last night was with the pacing. And now that I think about it, I wonder if a voiceover would have made the pacing a little bit
I think
better.
in certain places where the voiceover exists, it does improve the pacing a little bit, but then in other places, it removes from the pacing.
Right.
I mean, it's just the way that they employed it. I think it works in areas and it doesn't work in others. There's the scene where he and, what is EJO's character's name again? Gaff. When he and Gaff are going to the Tyrell Corporation, And for me, watching that scene without the voiceover is all about the visuals. Like, look at this cool flying car, and they're coming in, and here's the big building that looks like a pyramid that's the Tyrell Corporation. And then in the version with the voiceover, that's one of the areas where, like you say, it's a little over-explainy. Mm-hmm. And when I watched that scene again, because I watched the two versions within like 12 hours of each other, I was like, well, this just ruins this beautiful visual scene, because now I'm listening to what he's talking about instead of looking at all the cool flying cars and stuff. But there are certain scenes where I was like, oh, that kind of makes things make more sense to me. So it's just, I have mixed feelings about it.
I had such an issue with the pacing that I considered just turning on the director's commentary to help keep my attention. I'd seen it before, so I was like, oh, I don't really need that much of a refresher, and if I do, I'm sure that the director's commentary will provide that for me. I didn't end up doing that. I was just like, I have to watch it.
I recommend watching any movie where there's Ridley Scott director commentary, watching it, because as a director, he's just like, he knows what he's doing. I love listening to directors talk about directing, because I cannot be a director, but I understand some of what goes into it, and listening to them talk just makes me, it just opens my eyes to the craft, and he's one of those people that can really explain how it works.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's how I feel about Joss Whedon commentaries. He makes me want to make movies.
Aside from the voiceover, the controversial voiceover, what did you think, Brie?
The pacing sometimes was weird, and the voiceover got me out of it. So it was like there was some kind of weird divide between what was happening with the voiceover and the pacing that lost me a couple times, and my mind started to wander and then get back into it. Ultimately, I really liked it because it was visually stunning. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what can get me about a movie. I will forgive a lot of things if it's beautiful.
Well, and this was Ridley Scott's second feature film. He had only done Alien before this, so I think he's still kind of developing his sense of pacing.
Well, for to take a critical eye to, because this for me was as much as the ship coming over, for me, Star Wars and ducking things like for me this was like a mind blowing film at the time, because there really wasn't anything else like it, and the production design and the costumes are amazing. And it was just probably the grittiest thing that was really popular culture. Science fiction that was out there at the time.
And it was such a complete world. Like,
yes, exactly.
So, though I have to say, my criticism about it was like, considering when this film was made, did they really think like, oh yeah, in a couple of decades, this is what Los Angeles could look like? That would, because like I understand like, oh yeah, we have these big cities, and we have rail systems and different transportation, like all kinds of this cool stuff that we wouldn't expect to have had a couple hundred years ago. But, like, it's not going to take just a couple of decades to build upon that and make, like, a whole entire new crazy-looking fired city with flying cars and stuff like that. So I was like, well, I don't know if that's... I can't see that 6 years from now.
That's actually really one of the things I have for the drinking game is anytime you see technology that we don't have, or, hey, that would be cool if we did have it, take a drink. Having not seen it when it first came out, I wanted to know if the people that did see it in 1982, if they honestly thought that 2019 was going to be like that.
Well, in 1982, nobody gave a fuck. It was just this awesome, incredible film that looked like nothing anyone had seen before.
It does look
None
so
of us were
awesome.
thinking like, oh, that's only 20 years from now. I don't know if by then, and so there was a lot of theories out then about the cities growing into huge things. I mean, how old was I? Like 16, 17 years old. I wasn't thinking about what 2019 was going to look like. I mean, none of us
I'm sure
cared.
we could all find movies from the 90s that are like, in 2007, and we're like, nice try, guys. That's not what 2007 is going to look like.
So I felt like this is a movie that definitely questions what does it mean to be human.
Yeah, that's
and that seems like a theme that, I don't know if it's just a wide theme within science fiction or a theme that the five of us seem to keep choosing, but it's a theme that's come up on, movie we love, Star Trek, in a series we love, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, which we've discussed, even Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah. We even talked about it a little bit in Hitchhiker's Guide.
Well, I think it is a big sci-fi question. I think it's a I think it's
a
just
big human
it's a
question.
human question. Yeah. It's a human question, and I think it's a big topic for science fiction because they have infinite ways that they can tackle that because it's talking about the future and they can bring
it's talking
in
about things unhuman.
Yeah.
Right? So in the world of fiction where we're grounded in reality, you have to talk about human in human terms.
Yeah.
But in science fiction, you can try and define and look at human from outside
From
humanity.
any term
which
you want,
which
yeah.
opens up the conversation, I think, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
really, what makes being human so great?
It
Like
sucks.
at the end of the Wrath of Khan, he says he was the most human. I'm like, well, you have a lot of different alien races represented. Is that really the best thing to say about somebody? Is that the best compliment?
Yeah. That's a
But
good
in
point.
oftentimes it is, right? I mean, that's the whole, right? The big theme in Doctor Who, you know.
I think that's
That's
really
humans are so wonderful. And we're
that's
so
really
awesome.
vain of us.
Well, we are.
I'm not going to
yes.
deny that, Brie, but it is a very common. It's a very common thing.
We're gonna be vain about it until we discover like the 8,000 other races out there,
Yeah.
because we're all the, we have. So
They're
I
gonna
guess.
be like, humans, get over yourselves. Come on, guys.
Well, because there's certainly lots not to recommend us, which is also a very common theme in Doctor Who
Yeah.
and other science fictions, where other aliens look at us and go like, "But all you do is kill each other, and you're horrible," and blah blah blah. So I think it cuts both ways for
Yeah.
sure.
So since Sarah kind of brought it up, do you guys know about the Deckard controversy
Yes.
that's out there?
Which maybe not.
So,
I don't think so.
There's
I think I know what you're talking
controversy where there's a question about whether or not Deckard is human or a replicant.
That's what I was
Right.
questioning.
Which which if you had never seen if you've never seen the voiceover one, the voiceover one calls it into question almost pointedly.
It's pretty overt, yeah.
It's very overt.
Yeah, actually,
If
I
you-
wrote down a quote. There's two quotes. One of them is in every version, but one quote he says something about replicants aren't supposed to have feelings, but neither were Blade Runners.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I think without the
Yeah.
voiceover, it's way subtler.
It is. It's well, but
And
there's
some people might not even.
there's a
pick up
scene
on
that
it.
is added in the versions without the voiceover that makes it over in a different way. So in the version with the voiceover, he makes that statement about Blade Runners aren't supposed to have emotions, just like replicants, and that kind of stopped me in my tracks when I heard it, when I watched it today. But in the version without the voiceover, there's a scene where Deckard is like at the piano and he kind of falls asleep. And in the other versions, when he falls asleep, he has a dream about a unicorn.
Mhm.
And at the end of the film, when he and Rachel are escaping, she knocks over the origami
Yes,
of the
that-
unicorn.
yes.
So the only way for Gaff to know to make a unicorn would be for him to know what Deckard is dreaming about. And if he knows what Deckard is dreaming about, that implies that it's an implanted memory. Just like Deckard knows what Rachel's implanted memories are, Gaff knows what Deckard's implanted memories are. And so he gives him that little sign that maybe you're not human.
My question was, do you want him to be human,
I
or
don't
do you
know.
want him to be a replicant?
I don't know if I want him to be either one.
Yeah, I almost felt like
I like it being ambiguous because
Yeah.
it's very ambiguous.
I wanted him
So
to be a
your
replicant.
impression then is that he does read Rachel's files, and when he's giving her those, he's not picking random. He's not.
No, he knows what memories are implanted within her. Because there's that whole one about the spider that he tells
Right.
to her. That's definitely one of the memories that she has implanted.
Now, see, when I watched the film the first time, I'm just thinking like, oh, that's Charlotte's Web. If you were going to implant memories in a young girl, you would of course include Charlotte's Web. So in my mind, he's just picking things that he knows are typical.
No, because he specifically described the color of the spiders, and the way that she kind of carries on the end of that story in the scene, it almost suggests that he's telling it exactly the way that she remembers it. Like if she was to tell it,
Suggests.
yeah. There's a lot of
Suggests.
there's a lot of suggestion in this film.
Right.
But in the
So-
voiceover version, he doesn't he say I've seen her file. I
Yeah.
know that she's not going to die in 4 years.
Yeah, at the
Right.
very end, he
At
says,
the
"I
very
read her
end,
file."
Yeah.
But back to, and there's a couple other pieces of evidence that you can take it or leave it. There's a scene where Deckard's eyes glow. like the replicants do.
Yeah, whenever they
Yeah.
would scream, their eyes.
Yeah,
do that
oh, yeah,
weird
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So-
didn't notice
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's actually really hard to catch.
Okay.
It's the scene where he and Rachel, Rachel has just killed the other replicant, Leon, and he's killed the snake replicant lady, and they're at his apartment drinking, and they've both got the shakes, and he like splashes water on his face, and Rachel comes over and asks the question about, if I went north, would you come after me? And he kind of circles around her, and as he's walking back into the living room, he turns back and says something like, I wouldn't come after you, but someone would. And as he's saying that line, his eyes glow very briefly, and he's in the back, he's not in focus, but you can see it if you look really hard, and it's in every version. Now, Harrison Ford is firmly in the camp that he's not a replicant, he is a human, he's always been a human, we never decided that he would be a replicant, he's human. The only reason that that happened is because I crossed into her light. He's like, they light her separately so that she gets the eye glow.
She had Vaseline glow also.
Yes.
The Vaseline camera.
So I'm not totally sure if that eye glow was intentional. I tend to believe Harrison Ford that he crossed into her light because of how it's not in focus, and just kind of, it does seem accidental when you're watching it, but it brings up a question. It's another
for
piece
me,
of evidence.
he's always been human.
Yeah.
But didn't Ridley Scott say that
Ridley
he's
Scott
a
has
replicant?
kind of gone back and forth,
Okay.
but more recently he said that he's a replicant. Yeah.
I like that it's so ambiguous. Like, I'd rather not know.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that camp too. I
Because
like
that also helps with that whole, like, well, what makes you human?
Yeah.
Type question they're asking through the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, and you know, the replicants are all, not all of them, but several of them have an obsession with photos. And Deckard's piano is littered with all of these family photos. So there's all of these tiny little bits that could call
Well,
into
you assume
question.
they're family photos.
You
It could
assume they
also
are,
be
yeah.
Other photos from replicants he's
And
killed.
they,
It's possible.
they really lingered on those
Yeah,
fairly
they do.
often.
Yeah, they do. It's really
Well,
interesting.
the obviously the theme of memory, and perhaps memory and holding on to memories and processing memories, is one of the things that makes us human.
Mm-hmm.
So adding to the whole theme of the film, I think. So for me, the question that I always love to ask people about this film is the convincing Rachel that she's in love with him.
Oh my
scene.
God!
Oh, I
you
hate
know what I
that.
wrote down?
I literally laugh every time I watch that scene. It makes me laugh.
I wrote down that scene is a little bit rapey.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Deckard
wrote
gets
down.
rapey? That's what
I
I
wrote
wrote.
down, dude, what? Take your hands off her.
I
Like,
mean,
I was just like, why are you doing? That's not okay. That's super not okay.
Well, and the thing, so I know, I find it, it's an interesting thing. So why is it in the film? What is it about? Why did he choose to have the scene in there? Because so you've just learned that she's had these implanted memories, and they're not really her. And then he's basically telling her, you know, say
this.
that, say this,
say
say
kiss
that,
me.
say kiss me, say that you want me, say that you want me to touch you. And she's like, I want you to put your
She's like
hands on me,
afraid.
right?
Yeah.
You know, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh my god.
It's a little bit of an uncomfortable scene. Well, I think that today we're a little bit more sensitive to that because that is almost a very classic Hollywood scene of the man throwing the woman around and shaking her, making her
Gone
realize
with the
that
Wind.
yes, very Gone with
Yeah.
the Wind, yes, trying to make her realize that she's just dumb and doesn't realize that she's in love with him. But it's a little uncomfortable.
It is. Well, like,
Yeah.
it's one of
And
those things where he's like 50 pounds on her and he's like a half foot taller, and you're just like, dude, like, she's gonna say anything you tell her to say.
Yeah.
You could beat the shit out of her right now.
It made
But
me
for me, it's so not I mean, I totally get where you guys are coming from, but for me, it's the he's implanting in her.
Yes.
It's like he's programming
Yes,
her.
exactly.
That's what I find creepy about it.
Yeah.
I mean, in addition, the rapiness, sure. I hope that
No,
makes
that's
everybody feel
exact-
uncomfortable.
no,
but
that's
that's really
exactly-
what makes me uncomfortable. And then later, when he comes and she's still alive, and he takes the sheet off her, and he's like, "Tell me that you love me." I love you. You know, to me,
Yeah.
it's like this whole now he's created this little personal.
It made me wonder how
Blood
much
slave.
free will the replicants really had.
Well, and to me, it's that juxtaposition because you've got Roy Batty over here who's like free will, I need my life, and I'm going to get my
Yeah.
life for me, and there's nothing more free will than that, right?
Mhm.
You know, I'm going to beat death. God
Yeah.
can't have me. I'm going to beat death. Juxtaposed with her being this mealtoast,
Programmable.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love you, this programmable thing.
Yeah. Well, and she's a special kind of replicant. She's
Well,
different
which,
from
if,
them.
if Deckard's a replicant too, so is he.
Yeah.
Maybe all the Blade Runners are replicants
Maybe
being
everyone's a
programmed
replicant.
to hunt other replicants.
Yeah.
And they're all replicants.
How creepy.
That would make a lot of sense, though, so the humans don't have to involve themselves in the philosophical discussion of, you know, are we killing these people? No, we're not.
It's
We're just
They're killing
the replicants
themselves.
are killing the replicants.
We
We're not getting our
programmed
hands
these,
dirty.
these robots to kill each other.
But I guess when they were filming that scene, Harrison Ford like slammed her up against the wall pretty hard, and Sean Young got not too happy about that, from what I
Ooh.
understand. There was a lot of tension on this set, and
Yeah.
I think it comes through in a lot of their performances. Unfortunately, it's still a great film that I love.
Oh yeah, I
But
love
you
this
can
movie.
feel a lot of tension, and it's not necessarily derived from the story. Like, Scott and Ford didn't get along very well, and there was this tension between Ford and Sean Young because of that scene, and that's just what happened.
Can we also talk about how this world, well, this future world was very diversified, and they had like
Yes.
these languages that were layers upon layers of different languages, and like almost the entire main cast is just white,
Yes,
which is really weird to me. And like,
that is a little weird.
if there's so many cultures crossing over each other, like, how do we still have these super white guys? Just
Because we have super white guys who run Hollywood. Duh. I mean,
yeah.
And super white guys who think that super white guys only want to see super white guys.
Yeah. I mean,
It bugged me. I'm like, this future diversified world with
It's not very diverse.
yeah.
well, and I mean, if Hollywood has become more diversified today, which maybe it has,
It has
been
not.
a little bit, it sure as hell wasn't in 1982.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that just bugged me. I was like, well, why even bother presenting a future world with a bunch of different cultures?
Yeah. Well, and Edward James Olmos is awesome in this movie.
well, you can say
He's
the
in
same thing
3
about
scenes.
Firefly.
That's true.
And, you know, we've
right?
said it about
Word.
a lot. We've said it about a lot of the things that we've watched. We've
Yeah.
said pasty cast
Pasty
Mhm.
cast.
many times
yeah.
on this show. Stop it with the pasty cast, Hollywood. Seriously.
Yes.
But yeah, Edward James Olmos is awesome, and he's only in 3 scenes, and he's one of my
He is.
favorite
He's
parts
one-
of that movie.
He's one of my favorite
Mhm.
parts of the movie too, and
Yeah.
he says so little, but he says it so well.
Oh,
And
one
he
of
has
the
such
things.
with his
style.
Yes.
Yeah,
With
I love
such
his coat
style.
with the black leather that comes down.
He's
the back.
got those creepy white blue contacts.
Yet
Yeah.
another show that we've
Where
watched
he's
with
wearing
him where he's
blue
wearing blue
contacts.
contacts.
What's up with that, Edward James Olmos? We like your beautiful brown eyes.
Well, in Battlestar, they had to do
It was
that
'cause
so
so
that
that
it
he
could be
matched
plausible
Jamie
that he
Bamber.
was Jamie Bamber's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although Jamie Bamber could have put on brown contacts, and that would have
Would've been
almost made
easier,
more
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and genetically speaking, like, a brown-eyed person could still have a blue-eyed baby.
Totally.
Battlestar
But
tangent.
I know.
Skin jobs.
So-
Let's talk about
skin
skin
jobs.
jobs.
That just sounds like the worst weird sex act ever. I hated it when he said skin jobs.
But they say that in Battlestar
They
Galactica
do.
too.
Yeah.
That's a word that they use in Battlestar.
The,
Yeah,
to
I
the
can't
toasters
stand
and the skin jobs.
I totally agree with you, Bree. I wrote down who they were. So Michael Kaplan did the costumes.
Mhm.
Lawrence Paul did the production design, and David Schneider did the art direction. Ridley Scott himself drew many of the concept art pieces.
He does.
And for me, that thing that you said about that it was such a completely realized world is, I think, one of the things that makes it such a stunner. It
Oh,
really
yeah.
is amazing.
I always think of that Tyrell Corporation building. Like, that is such a cool building. It's like that giant gold pyramid
Mayan
of light.
pyramid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so cool.
If anyone who's listening lives in Seattle, Amazon headquarters were on just south of Pill Hill in the International District in Seattle. Swear to God, it looks like the Tyrell Corporation.
Really?
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
If you're there, take pictures and send them to us. Well, and then the building that inspired Deckard's apartment is called the Ennis House, and it's in California. I think it's in LA, and it's that weird kind of very geometric square pattern that's in his apartment. They actually built like a tiny replica version of it at the Warner Brothers studio.
When we saw his apartment, I wrote down, future sure has a lot of textures.
Yeah,
A lot of textures for sure.
That's I like how you phrase that. I like stuff that's got a lot of texture. I think that's one of the things that really draws me to this.
Mm-hmm.
The police building that they land on at the very beginning that Gaff takes him to meet up with, what's his name, that's like pulling you back into service to hunt these things.
Yeah.
That looked like the Millennium Falcon to me. The top of it. Did anybody else see that?
I did not make that connection
and
at
then
all.
I made a few more, and I had to recheck. This was so soon after Star Wars, 1982, but I felt like I saw a ton of illusions, just visual illusions. The umbrellas looked like they were
like
lightsabers with an
in
umbrella
them.
on
Yeah.
the top. The opening, the crawl, and then opening onto black with pinpoints of light, and then you see
The Star Destroyer.
The Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
When you see the Star Destroyer coming through,
Yeah.
in the opening of this, there's the crawl, and then pinpoints of light, and then instead of a big Star Destroyer, you realize those are just gigantic buildings.
So, characters. Who was your favorite replicant?
I want to do, and I just tweeted this too. I want to do Jorah cosplay
Yeah.
Yes.
with her clear, like rain flicker thing and
Oh my
like the
gosh.
go-go boots, and I totally want to do
Those were
that
go-go
cosplay.
boots. Those were like go-go boots on
The assassin
steroids.
boots.
Yeah,
Yeah,
assassin
she was
boots.
so cool. I was like, oh man, I really want that bubble
I
hair
want
dryer.
that.
Yes.
I have always wanted that. Ever since I saw this movie when I was a kid, I was like, I want that hair dryer.
I
And
don't
when
want
she
it to
was
do
like
that to my
choking
hair,
him
though.
with his tie, I was like, I'll get it, girl.
She's running in her awesome high heel,
Yeah.
killer boots, and then there's the scene where she's in Reebok tennis shoes suddenly. As the snow woman is in Reebok tennis shoes.
Oh,
You
I
can
never
totally
noticed.
see them.
I have
yeah.
to go back and catch that now.
And then,
Continuity.
The scene, another continuity for me is when she's undoing her hair and suddenly she has Sarah hair.
Yes.
Like my hair?
Yes.
So she's got those beautiful red lips all the time.
And
those
then they
film
go
roles,
away.
And then they're like totally
Yeah,
gone.
I
Yeah.
noticed that too.
They were instantly gone. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, for that scene, because that scene is so long and drawn out, by the way, of her taking her hair down.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I get it. She's Deckard's girl now. She's changed her hair because she's Deckard's now. I got it. Thanks. And then it gets to the rapey part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, right?
It's
I know.
weird.
So, although one of my favorite frame shots is from that scene after she does it.
Yeah.
And he's laying down.
That
and
is-
she is so far right in the frame, and her hair is basically making the rest of it black, and she just turns her head slightly, but she's so far screen right. It's ridiculous. But it's one of my most favorite shots in the film.
I'll have to go back and look for that one. The shot from that scene that I really like is she's at the piano and then Deckard kind of comes into frame.
Oh, yeah. And sits down next
Yeah.
to her at the piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I do. Roy Batty would probably be my favorite
Yeah.
replicant, and he does such a tour de force performance.
Yes.
I mean, he is amazing in this film. Ricker Howard does such a fantastic
amazing.
job for
I
me.
think it's my favorite Rucker Howard role.
I mean, it's
Well, and
crazy good.
I can't pick Pris because she's annoying and her wig is terrible.
Oh my god, yes,
her wig
thank you.
is terrible,
It's like
terrible.
somebody put a football helmet on her and then put hair on top of that football helmet.
Yes, it's
almost feel
just
like it was
so
intentional,
bad.
though.
I think it was, and that's what makes me even more angry
Yeah.
about it. It's terrible. And then I can't like Snake Lady because she's not in it for long enough. And then the other guy is too killy.
Yeah. He also has weirdly long
I'm so
fingernails.
articulate today. It's great. But yeah, I mean, Batty, come on.
He's amazing.
And I guess that last speech he gives, that was all. That was totally
That was him.
improvised.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a really long monologue,
Yeah.
and he just winged it.
Yep, and it's beautiful. One of the most beautiful pieces of talking in science fiction.
So one of my questions was about the replicants. He had to have.
My favorite.
Oh, yeah, so yours.
Okay,
Sorry, Brie.
It was actually Rachel, and not even because of anything she did. I thought her outfits were really
They're
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
And
They
I want to
are.
do my hair like hers one day.
I do too.
Yeah, you could do it too. Yeah.
I'm gonna do my hair like I want her gigantic shoulder pads and her gradient outfit and her giant hair and her big coats.
I love
the
the
huge
way
stand-up thing.
she
Yeah.
looks when she first comes on camera.
Oh
when
my
she walks
God,
in that all black number
Thing
and
with her
she's
hand
so
in her
angular.
pocket.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
With the cigarette. Oh man, that's like my favorite scene with her in the whole movie.
So I found a quote by Michael Kaplan, who's the costume designer.
Okay.
He said, "I wanted to create a futuristic heroine who was believable in the future, but with her feet firmly planted in a film noir past."
Yeah.
And I think he
absolutely.
nails it.
Nailed it.
Absolutely,
He
yeah.
totally nailed it.
I remember reading the Wikipedia entry for this movie, and it referred to Rachel as a femme fatale, and I was like, she so is.
Yeah.
Except she's not.
Yeah.
Well,
She looks like
she
one.
has her
She's
moments.
She's not the one that like necessarily draws him into the danger, but she draws him into a certain kind of danger by, being so attractive and seductive, and then he falls in love with her and won't kill her.
I guess that's true.
Kind of dooms him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dooms them both.
Yeah, but he didn't want to be a Blade Runner anymore anyway.
One of the questions I had was about the different models, and I would expect, just for ease of production, that anybody creating human replicants would kind of do it with, like a standard physical appearance. A lot like the Cylons. They just have, the million copies of the Sharons and the million copies of the Sixes and et cetera, et cetera. But he had to get, and I understand that part of it was for the viewer's benefit, but he had to get a rundown and this is so-and-so and this is so-and-so and here's what they look like.
Yeah.
The guy that they had as the ammo loader, Leon,
Mm-hmm.
he had like no chin.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, he didn't strike me as somebody that would have been created on purpose to have a certain role. You think like even just from a buyer's standpoint, I want somebody that looks strapping to come and load my ammo.
I mean, like, if
I
you're
love
going to
Alice's face
create
right
a
now.
human being, why not create them perfectly?
Right, and
But there are lots of reasons why you wouldn't. So first of all, I would say, well, obviously for the look of the film, that wouldn't have worked at all because we're not making beautiful superheroes, with their perfectly chiseled abdomen.
This is a gritty universe,
But this is a gritty universe, and I would say from a buyer's perspective, if they're going to be off-world and mingling, now if they're just going to be off-world with themselves, why even bother making them look human?
Yeah.
But if they're going to be off-world and having to intermingle, would it not make other people uncomfortable or even more uncomfortable if all of the replicants were the most beautiful things in the world? It would automatically peg them as replicants versus if they have human foibles and they're not perfect in every single way, then they're much more likely to fit in the quote-unquote human world.
Is that something that would fly in current filmmaking, having a supposedly strong work ox character be not traditionally attractive?
Sure. Why not? It would depend on the film, project, context.
I'm trying to think of a good modern example, and I know there have been times when I've looked at something and been like, that's not the choice I would have expected Hollywood to make, but I'm pleased they made it.
Yeah.
I just can't think of any examples right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some too.
Well, I would say that not all of the Cylons are gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, Six certainly is, but little blonde-headed guy, maybe an
Leoben.
actor. Yeah, he's not
Leoben's not
gorgeous.
super attractive.
He's not super gorgeous. Well, so that's the other thing. What each individual finds is beautiful. I mean, you can always, what we find pasty white cast, what we would have found beautiful isn't what Asians would have found beautiful, which isn't
Right.
what black people would have found beautiful, which isn't what whatever would have found beautiful. I mean, it's such a cultural, socioeconomic, whatever thing defining of beauty.
But I am with you in terms of we don't want them to look perfect so that they can blend in. Well, and and the other thing too is, for the story purposes, if they all made them look exactly the same, then what are the purpose of Blade Runners at all?
Right.
Like, if they could just identify them when they're coming through customs, like...
Oh yeah, like, that's a model cue.
Yeah.
Right,
Done.
right.
Yeah. It gives
how
people
are
more
they-
variety.
How are they? I know that they say they're genetically engineered, but
Yeah.
do they just have? Are they based on human genetics?
They don't really go into it very much. I mean, JF is like some kind of geneticist. But my guess is that rather than it being assembly line, it's a much more. It sounds like it's a messier process than that.
Well, even given what JF has around him in his apartment as things that he's created.
Yeah.
Many of them have humanistic characteristics, but some of them are oddly shaped and have other things going on with them. But yeah. I would have to say that the world created worked well enough for me that I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about that stuff.
Yeah.
It just worked.
It just
for
was.
me.
Yeah.
It just was. The world was what it was, and I accepted it as it was.
Yeah.
Oh, something that bugged me. I think this is going to be my thing that bugs me.
All right.
Okay, we got it.
We've got it. I don't like it when they do things with photos and videos that you can't actually do.
Oh, I have that.
Oh,
enhanced
everybody has a
photo
problem
trope.
with that.
Yeah.
I wrote
Yeah.
that down.
And
Enhance-
enhance photo trope. They keep
Enhance,
enhance,
track right,
enhance, zoom,
track
zoom,
right.
zoom. I'm like, this is, we all have Photoshop. We know that's not how it works because you hit sharpen and all of a sudden it turns into a bunch of pencil lines and it looks terrible. Like, you're not going to enhance on this this tiny little like 5x7 photo print and be able to see some
reveal a
chick.
person who definitely was not in that picture from the angle that it was taken.
I'm like, well, I mean, that's even worse. Because for me, I would say, so like in 1982, we didn't have Photoshop, or I'd never heard of Photoshop in 1982. But, you know, we also, there's so many other things in science fiction that we don't have transporters, we don't have whatevers, you know, we don't have things that you have to a certain extent, extend your disbelief for. Extend?
Yeah.
Did I say that
Suspend.
right? No,
Suspend.
suspend. I was
Thank
like,
you.
wait, I know something is wrong with what I just said. Suspend your disbelief for. And then, obviously, in some cases, you just can't suspend your disbelief, and you're just like, no, this will not work.
Well, even today, there are people who are like, oh, I'm wearing a hat in this photo. Could you Photoshop that off for me? And you're like, I could, but it'll just be a blank square.
Well, and
sure.
because I think Alice might have tweeted about
I
it.
did. I was like, enhance.
And it stood out to me. Yeah. So I was thinking that we may need to come up with a list of standard drinking rules. Like, whenever this happens in a film or a TV show, you need to be drinking. Because it happens so often.
Every single time they say enhance, you take a sip.
This is one of those things that anytime they're enhancing photos like just anytime it's happening, zoom in, sharpen, enhance, it's time to start drinking, people.
Well,
like, I'm sorry.
In 1982, was that science fiction enough to maybe have started this whole enhanced trope?
Where did it start? That's a good question.
I don't know if this was the first place, but you know, at the time, you know, with the flying cars, and again, it was a complete enough world that at the time, none of my friends were sitting around making fun of it. But shortly thereafter, you know, you're watching it 5 years later, and you're like, whatever.
I don't
You know,
remember
it's
questioning it
ridiculous.
when I first saw it when I was a kid. I remember thinking, that's kind of cool. And he's printing it right now. Look at that print quality. Printers in the future are going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Only they're lame now.
Yeah.
But the other thing I wrote down about that scene is I think it's the most brilliantly acted enhance zoom scene I've ever seen. Harrison Ford. That is one of the scenes Harrison Ford committed more to than any other scene in that movie. He's really good at staring at screens. Like, he rests his cheek on his hand a lot. He was really intense in that scene. It's a weird thing to zero in on, but
And did we all feel sad for JF?
Yes.
I did. Poor
JF didn't deserve to die.
He did not deserve to die.
He's such a sweet guy.
And he was so helpful to them.
I know.
So he was the third character that I was, or the third actor that I was going to bring up that we've talked about
what
before.
else has he been in? Because he's in a lot of stuff
He's
that I
Sheriff
watched.
Dearborn in
Well, we
True
haven't
Blood.
done True Blood
We haven't
yet,
done True
but-
Blood.
Yeah.
True Blood.
Truly bored.
We
That
haven't
would
done.
be me.
We haven't done True Blood yet, but he was also in the Grail episode of Babylon 5, season 1, episode 15.
You're right. I remember looking him up when I watched it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's
Who
a
did he
two-timer. William Sanderson has done a lot
He's
of acting.
prolific.
He's very prolific, so I'm
But
sure
I
there's.
tell you, it's way more lucrative to be a character actor.
Oh, yeah.
To be a lead.
Yes.
I'd love to be a character
He was
actor.
in
Yeah.
Grail. He played the character Deuce.
Underworld thug.
Deuce's Men. Yeah, he was the dude with the squid thing that was sucking
Oh.
on people and killing
Oh.
them. Yeah.
gotcha. I don't remember.
So quotes, good quotes.
Quotes. Well, I mean, it's just filled with, for me anyway, I mean, these became the vocabulary of my youth. You know, wake up, time to die. Let me tell you about my mother. You know, all of those.
Yeah.
Those were things that my friends and we quoted all through the 80s. You know, that was our vocabulary.
I'd say, let me tell you about my mother.
Yeah, let me tell you about what accelerated decrepitude.
Yes, accelerated decrepitude.
Oh, what did I tweeted something last night.
Let me find it.
I didn't write it down in my notes. Why do I do that? Why do I tweet
you felt
instead
like
of write down?
You wrote it down.
The one that you tweeted was the light that burns twice as bright burns half as long, and you have burned so very, very brightly, Roy.
Yes.
Yes, that Tyrell says to him.
And I highlighted that in my brain.
I mean, it's a beautiful line.
It's a great line.
Talking about humanity, I mean, that's something that we all hear, right?
Well,
you
and
know?
it's...
A life well lived doesn't have to be long.
Doesn't have to be.
Very loving.
Yeah.
I felt.
I thought it was too, because, I mean, he's there to ask for, okay, like, this really sucks. I only get to live for, like, 4 years. You're going to fix this now. Yeah. And he genuinely had done everything that he could to try and figure out how to extend their lives, and he just couldn't.
Although
you don't know if it's true.
Yeah, and for one, or at least my thought of Tyrell is, he is first and foremost a businessman.
Yes, that's true.
So he's not figuring it out because he feels like these replicants should have longer lives because they should have longer lives. He's trying to figure it out so that he can get more money out of these replicants.
He can sell more product if it dies after 4 years. Yeah.
Exactly.
And if they come on Earth and get retired constantly, sure, I can send more replicants out to your colony.
Well, and it was also played up in the early conversation when Harrison Ford's character was getting re-recruited. The way that they solve the problem of the renegade replicants is the 4-year lifespan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they get a little, they figure it out. And there's another point, I don't know who says it or which conversation it is, where they're talking about these memories are implanted, but they have such underdeveloped experiences
Tyrell says that
they get these warped emotional concepts.
Yeah.
Like children.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like weird.
Which really makes
children.
him shaking down that chick a little creepier.
Yeah, right? I mean, to me, that's like the weirdest part in the
does.
film. It's I've always...
Yeah, I've always had problems with that, too.
Yeah.
But if he's a replicant with his own weird emotional reactions, maybe it makes sense. I don't know.
Do we see the production design being copied a lot? Alice, you were saying that production design was very novel at the time, and I remember watching it and seeing a lot of Serenity and Firefly in it, as far as when they were on the planets.
Well, the whole concept, that the Chinese are going to take over the world is certainly,
Yeah.
one of them. I don't know. I just remember that time period for me, it was when a lot, that's Mad Max, it's Blade Runner.
Yeah, it's
Alien,
Mad Max is very gritty like that.
It was a very, the future is not this analytical, clean.
It's not Star Trek people.
Right, it's not Star Trek, that there's this new concept of this grittiness that, being a teenager was like, yeah, grittiness.
I like it dark.
I like it dark. I'm going to start wearing black now.
I wrote down, there's a lot of lens flare in this movie. J.J. Abrams, eat your heart out. As I was watching it, and they put a mechanism to cause a lens flare in there. It's that big city ship that's advertising, go to the colonies, and it's got spotlights all over it.
The
and it's
woman
always
taking the pill.
Yes. Take the red pill.
Yes.
She's taking red pills. But yeah, that thing's always flying around and shooting light right into the shot, and it'll completely obscure vision. And then you get these they're not like over the top like J.J. Abrams, but I could see him having watched that movie and liked that effect. I don't know if it's true, but watching the way that the light moves across the screen to cause those lens flares really reminded me of J.J. Abrams and Star Trek.
Well, I liked Sarah, who wants to cosplay as Sora.
Oh, and I looked up like cosplay Zora, and there was this one girl who did Rachel and one girl who did Zora.
I want to do Rachel.
Oh my
You want to
god,
do
me
Rachel?
too.
You want to
Yeah.
do Rachel?
I'll do Zora if
Well,
you guys
Lord knows
do
I
Rachel.
don't want to do Roy Batty and his little boy shorty shorts.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
man spanks.
His
Yes.
man spanks. Yes, man spanks.
Although that's a pretty cool look, the man spanks with the running shoes.
Yeah.
There's something
Yeah.
about that. I'm like, that's kind of cool looking.
And his white hair.
Yeah, and his skin was really pale too.
Yeah. No, I would do Gaff.
Although I would consider doing Pris even though I hate her hair because I would just improve the hair
Mhm.
because I really like the black eye makeup
Oh,
that she
yeah.
does.
The mask.
Well, it's funny because she
Yeah.
does it really overtly, but they all have. It's like I'm gonna take my black eyeliner and go
Yeah.
rub it all over the bottom of my
Well, Rachel
eye.
gets it because she's crying a lot.
Oh.
Good.
Mm.
But yeah, I want Rachel's black outfit with the bangs.
I
and
want
super tight
What
hairstyle.
a radiant outfit with those gigantic shoulder pads.
Yeah.
Mm.
She's got amazing coats in this movie. And
So
actually,
good.
the one with the giant shoulder pads, that's like, or the one that you like, that's a coat.
It
That's
is?
like a 3-layer outfit. She's
No,
got
there's
this
the gray
big,
one the gray.
She's got the big gray furry coat that she's wearing when she shoots. What's his name? That's Sarah.
Leon.
When she shoots Leon, and she takes that off at Deckard's apartment, and she's wearing the gradient.
Yes, the gradient one, which
and
also
then
has
underneath
grace.
is a silk
and,
shirt.
is a silk shirt,
Yeah.
yes, that she takes off.
Yeah.
That is a
Goodness.
complicated costume. Good work,
Yeah.
costume
It's been-
designers.
Is there
Yeah,
any
it's been on
character
display.
development that goes along with the shedding of the clothing layers?
Well, yeah, because that's right
Mhm.
before
That's when
she
she
becomes
opens up
Deckard's
to
girl.
Deckard.
She opens
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
like
very
with
much
each
planned.
layer she sheds, she gets a little less cold, though she honestly stays
She's less
cold.
She
angular
stays cold.
too.
Well,
Well, and there were a lot of female characters to choose from for cosplay, but does this pass the Bechdel test? They all have names. There's
They do
more
all
than one
have
female
names.
character, but do they,
They,
ever
they
talk
never,
to
They
each
never
other?
talk
they
to
never
each other.
interact.
No.
none of the women ever interact with each other, so it
Mm-mm.
would not. It fails.
Fails. Okay, Hollywood. Less pasty, more women characters talk to each other.
Yeah.
We have a killer who gets killed, Zora. We have a prostitute, and then we have an android who gets almost raped. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Way to go.
Well, and then Pris was like a pleasure model.
Yeah, exactly.
Both of
Prostitute
them were
basically.
pleasure models, weren't they?
No, she was an assassin.
She was, just
Oh.
supposed to be a
killer
hot assassin.
squad. Yeah,
Oh.
killer squad.
Did you feel
Boobs. There's
like
boobs in this movie.
Yeah, there are boobs.
Oh,
in this.
yeah.
They're quite nice boobs.
And
Very-
actually,
very pert.
that that
bedazzled?
actress is in 6 Feet Under, which I keep talking about on this show because I love it. Although they do look very nice.
They do look very nice. So in honor of our geek host Cassie, who's not with us today, I feel like I have to mention the scene where after Pris has died
Uh huh.
and she's lying on the floor with her tongue
With her
out,
tongue out,
and
yeah.
Roy comes along and kisses her and
Oh,
pushes
puts
her
it back
in there, yeah.
That Cassie would have really not been very excited about that scene
I think
at
you're
all.
right. Yeah. Well,
It's weird.
it's a little weird, gross.
Yeah, it's a little weird, gross.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really sure why they needed to put that in there.
No.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird, gross along the lines of the uncomfortable scene.
Right. Yes, indeed. So the only one for me is we have talked about soundtracks on other shows, and
Yeah.
again, for me,
Yes.
this soundtrack
What a
was
soundtrack.
Vangelis. It was huge for, again, my group of friends. We all bought the soundtrack. We all listened to it outside of the film, and
I need
it
to
was
buy
huge.
it. It's a great soundtrack. One of my
Yeah.
drinking games rules is soundtrack related.
Oh,
Yes.
well, I think that is a wonderful segue into sharing our drinking game rules for
Okay.
Blade Runner. You go ahead.
All right, my soundtrack related drinking game rule, and I think Alice will appreciate this, is take a drink anytime the soundtrack speaks to your soul in a cheesy, incredible way. And I'm looking at you, synthesizers and saxophones.
That is awesome. Oh my god.
Because there are just moments in that film
Yes.
where it, like, the soundtrack swells and you're like, it's the future! I'm in a
It
flying
is.
car with Harrison Ford!
Yes, we're flying over the time
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I have take a drink every time you hear a whisper, and 2 if you're not sure if you heard a whisper.
Oh.
Okay.
That's very clever.
That is really clever. That happens a lot.
Yeah, you're just like, what? What?
Huh?
Did someone? What did they say?
Well, there's the one that I brought up earlier when Bree was talking about technology that says, take a drink anytime you see technology. That wouldn't it be great if we actually had that right now? And then the big one for me was take a drink anytime you see someone smoking.
There's a lot of smoking.
Oh,
in
there is
this.
a lot of
Yeah.
smoking. It's
Well,
very
that goes back to the noir. Yeah.
The 40s.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was a stylistic thing or if it was a time period thing, because I remember a time in movies when there was quite a bit of promotional consideration given by.
I think it was stylistic.
No, I
more.
think in this case it was stylistic. Both, I think, not only from a throwback to the 40s, but steam and smoke just in general play a big visual role in the film, and I think the smoking adds to it.
Well, and that's kind of like the way that lighting works is very obstructive in the same way that smoke and mist are in the film.
For me, my first drinking game rule was you have to take a shot every time a replicant changes their facial expression in a heartbeat. So like all those times where she's like, oh, JF, la la la, and then she looks over at Roy and she looks like she's gonna like kill him in 5 seconds. Or Roy is like happy and then he looks evil, and then he looks all kid-like, and then he looks all evil, and there's a lot of that quick facial expression change.
That's a good one.
Except for Leon, because he just looks stupid all the time.
That poor actor. We've said very mean things
We
about
have,
him
but
today.
I did enjoy his performance.
I did enjoy his
actually.
performance, and he's a good actor. I've seen him in other things.
Yeah,
but,
he's still working, I think.
Yeah, he is.
I have every time you see a bad wig.
There's a lot of those.
There's a lot of bad wigs.
There's a lot of bad wigs.
Or just bad hair.
Ugh.
I mean, like you were saying, you wished that you had that weird hair dryer thing. I think that would be cool, but I just don't want it to do that to my hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it. I don't want it to do that exactly to my hair, but I would like that because it seems very convenient and it seems like it'd feel really good. My hair is going everywhere. One of my rules was, take a drink anytime you see the replicant's eyes glow.
That's one of mine.
Yeah.
I did not catch that at all, and it might
They
have
look
been
like
because I
cats.
was doing like research at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
But
There's a lot of very visual things in the film. You need to sit
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
focus on it.
I'll do that
Yeah.
when I listen
Cats,
to the
I love that
director's
cats.
cuts.
Yeah, it's a cat eye thing.
Yeah.
I'll take a drink to cats for sure.
One of mine was down at Sing Hao every time there's a Chinese person in a role of commerce.
Oh, yes. There's like at least 4 beers right there.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. That eyeball guy is cool.
Yeah.
That scene is creepy because what is his name again?
Leon.
I cannot.
I made such a point to write down everybody's name.
I did
even
too, except
rewound
for
it when
his.
they were introducing them to Deckard
Yeah.
so that I could write them down.
I
I'm
bring
sorry,
up Amazon
Leon.
X-ray so that it would show up. And
Oh, nice.
Oh, I don't like that. Bugs me.
I can't leave it on.
Oh, but you can just
you
check
bring it
real
up.
quick.
Yeah,
and,
and-
Yeah.
I have to check that out. But yeah, I like how he's like laying Leon is laying the eyeballs on the guy's
Oh my god,
shoulder.
I
Yeah.
know.
It's so gross.
And weird thing that I notice about people, he has really long fingernails,
Yes.
which I always find a little bit
That was a
disconcerting on
character
guys.
thing, I
don't
think.
know why.
That's a character
think
thing.
so?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so one thing, if he's a big heavy loader kind of a guy, why would you? If somebody who
Yeah.
works, why
If
would
you
you
work
have
with your
long
hands, you
fingernails?
need
If you
to
work
have
with
short.
Your hands, they're short. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were way too clean. So that was for me. There was a lot of like, so it's really gritty, and then their hands are really clean. I'm like, I don't get that. But anyway, sorry.
Daddy's got the poor hand, the whole hand
Yes, he
thing going on.
does.
Poor guy. He can't use his hand right.
Well, and then Harrison Ford's fingers get broken.
Yes.
That was brutal.
That was brutal. That's gotta hurt, man.
I mean, he does a good job screaming. So one of mine was that every time
That should be a standing
Deckard
rule.
makes any kind of a facial expression where he scrunches up his face, because he does a lot. There's like
He
the
does.
one where Deckard's going over all the characters and he keeps going,
He-
and then when he's screaming, he
When
scrunches up his
he
face a
does.
lot as an actor.
That's a Harrison Ford thing, yeah.
Another one I have is take a drink anytime you see either the Coca-Cola ad or the taking the red pill ad.
What about Pan Am? Pan Am's in there too.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah. There was
But
Coke was pretty prominent,
huge.
yeah. There was on the Wikipedia entry they talk about the quote unquote Blade Runner curse because a lot of the companies that were featured like went under not long after it. But I'm like, well,
Coke
But
didn't.
Coca-Cola.
yeah. Well, they had like a
faltered 'cause of New Coke.
a dip. Yeah, they had like a dip in sales. But I'm like, you could probably argue that for any movie where there's advertisement placement because movies age and companies come and go. So
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of silly. But yeah, I like that. What
I
about you?
have my last rule is take a sip every time you're confused about who might be a replicant.
Oh, excellent. That's a
That's
good
a
one.
good one. Let's see if I've got another good one. Oh, take a shot anytime Gaff leaves origami behind.
I have that too.
Nice.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. My favorite is this little guy, his little man.
The little stick man.
Does that little stick man have a little stick penis?
I didn't notice.
I
didn't
not.
think to look.
I did not think to look either, Megan.
I never noticed it until I rewatched it this morning, and something about the angle when he put it down, I was like, wait a second.
It's anatomically correct.
Did I- yes.
Anatomically correct.
Did I-
It
Origami
could
man.
be. It
I
could be.
wonder if we can pull up a screenshot.
Oh, please do.
Gaff origami is a thing that,
Oh my
yes, he
goodness.
does.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding, right there.
Oh my god.
I don't know if that was on purpose.
I don't know if
though.
it was on purpose or not either, but that little stick guy is anatomically correct.
Wow.
Nice.
That makes
I
me
wonder
like
if
Gaff even more.
if we looked in the credits, whether they have a credit for the origami folder, if they have like a special
Yeah,
credit line.
who did that? Those are tiny little origamis. Oh, Gaff, we love you. Well, thanks everybody for listening to our Blade Runner episode of Educating Geeks. Don't forget that you can look us up online. Our blog is educatinggeeks.wordpress.com, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Just search for Educating Geeks, and you will find us.
Come find us.
Yes.
Have your friends find us. That would
Yes.
be even better.
We want more listeners.
And we are now
Oh.
on Stitcher and iTunes.
Oh my
That's
God,
right,
yes.
yes. We're on Stitcher. If
Thank
you're
you,
listening to
Sarah.
us on Stitcher, thanks for listening to us. And we're on iTunes. If you're listening to us on iTunes, thanks for listening.
And we're still on SoundCloud.
Yes, and we're still on SoundCloud. So you can find us all over the interwebs. All
Indeed.
over. We're trying to make it easy for you people.
All right, till next time.